This isn't a car channel, but in the last year I've had very good experience with two lesser known tyre brands. I hear very little about these brands and see very little on the internet, so I thought it was about time that they got a bit of a shout out. The cars in question are a 3 litre Ford Escape SUV and a Honda Brio 1.2 litre eco car. Shortly after buying both cars, they needed their tyres replacing, and the difference between good and bad tyres can be the difference between life and death. It's obviously not a risk you want to take, so I just went out and bought the best tyres I could, which to my mind were Michelin. They were quite expensive, but at the time my financial position was very different to what it is now, and the money wasn't really a problem, so I just threw Michelins on them. I put HP Latitudes on the Escape, but I'm afraid I can't remember the type of Michelin tyre that went onto the Brio. Anyway, when the Michelins on the Escape needed replacing, I was just going to put more Michelins on, but there was a small problem in that I couldn't get the right size. I'm just going to go around to the door. I'm a bit obsessive about certain things, especially regarding safety. And the manufacturer specifies what size of tyre should go on this car. And many people don't seem to care if they put a different size tyre on, but I do. And I couldn't get the exact size. And the only size I could get was a Bridgestone tyre. The Escape then ran on Bridgestone EP850s for a few years, and they were fine. I couldn't really tell the difference between those and the Michelins regarding handling, braking, ride, etc. But the Michelins were actually about 5% better regarding fuel economy. Next up, the tyres on my wife's Brio needed replacing. And since I replaced the tyres the last time, my financial situation had changed quite considerably. I live in Thailand on an income from the UK, and ever since I moved to Thailand in 2003, the exchange rate has just been going down continually. At first it was almost 75 bahts to the pound. After the global financial crisis in 2008, it went down to around 60. Then it kept dropping, and pre-Brexit it was about 52. And after the Brexit referendum, when Brits decided to leave the EU, it plunged overnight by about 10 baht. And at one stage it was down to about 38 bahts to the pound. It's now around 41. So effectively I'm just getting poorer all the time, and I've also got married, so instead of having one mouth to feed and one lot of health insurance to buy, it's 4 mouths and 4 lots of health insurance. And school fees in Thailand are very expensive, so I've just basically got a lot less money and a lot more outgoings. So throwing on a set of Michelins and not worrying about the cost wasn't really an option. This time I had to look for a cheaper alternative. So I started looking around, and this is what I came up with. And these are Hankook. And I did some research as much as I could, although as I say, there's not much information on the internet, and they seem fine. So I ordered some online, and I'll tell you more about them in a minute, but essentially they've been a fantastic tyre. Because I ordered them online, I needed to get them fitted, and there's a guy near to me, a little shop who repairs and fits tyres, and his first question to me was, why didn't you buy a Michelin? And the reason was because they're twice as expensive as these. And in his mind, the Tier 1 tyres are Michelin and Bridgestone. Tier 2 are the tyres that he's familiar with that aren't Michelin and Bridgestone. And Tier 3 are those tyres that he's not familiar with that aren't Michelin or Bridgestone. And they include brands such as Continental that go on to German luxury cars, Pirelli that are used in F1, and Hankook. He just regards these as Tier 3 cars. And since I got interested in different tyre brands, I started looking around at what tyres different cars were using. And I saw very few Hankooks. And one of the first cars I saw that was using Hankooks was a brand new Porsche Cayenne hybrid. And I'm pretty sure that Porsche aren't going to be putting third-rate tyres on one of their top models. In terms of ride, handling, braking, they're equally as good as the Michelins. Unfortunately, my wife isn't as obsessive as I am, and she doesn't recall the fuel economy. Whenever I top up my car with fuel, I fill it to the brim, set the trip meter, and so the next time I know exactly how much fuel I've used and exactly how much distance I've covered. She doesn't do that. But as far as I'm aware, there's virtually no difference between these and the Michelin in terms of fuel economy. These ones have been on since last October. It's now September, so that's almost a year, and they've been fantastic. And in fact, these ones might actually last a bit longer than the Michelin. With the Michelins, after 3 years and 50,000 kilometres, the rubber on the tread really started to disintegrate badly. But after almost a year of these ones, they still ought to be in very good shape. So I'm very, very happy with the Hankook tyres. Shortly afterwards, I noticed that the Bridgestones on my car needed replacing. And because I was so happy with the Hankooks on my wife's car, I decided I wanted Hankooks. And there's a model called Dynapro HP2 that I wanted. But again, like previously with the replacement Michelins, I found that I couldn't get the right size, and I didn't want to put a size of tyre on that was different to what the manufacturer recommended. So I started looking around again, and I came up with this one, which is a Getty HT152. Again, I did as much research as I could, but because there's so little on the internet, it was quite difficult. I've been using these now for a few months, and again, they are fantastic tyres. They're very grippy, and in terms of ride, handling, braking, etc., they're easily as good as the Michelins and Bridgestones. What really surprised me about these tyres was the fuel economy. At first, I was getting amazing fuel economy that I'd never ever seen before. But now it's settled down, they're about the same as the Michelins, and both are about 5% better than the Bridgestones. What I can't do, unfortunately, is controlled scientific testing. So I can't tell you, for example, exactly how many metres it takes to decelerate from 100 kilometres an hour to 0 with different tyres. All I can do is give you my driving impressions. The other thing I can't do is tell you how the tyres perform in different climatic conditions. I live in southern Thailand where the temperature very rarely goes below 25 degrees Celsius. So that these tyres will never ever see ice or snow. It's often very, very hot, and sometimes it's very, very wet. In those conditions the tyres are fine, but as I say, I don't know how they'll perform in very cold conditions. When I worked in IT, there was a saying that no one ever got fired for buying IBM. And what that meant was that although IBM equipment was very expensive, it was good, there was less likelihood of a catastrophic failure, and if there was a failure, you could be reassured that support would be available. Because tyres are so important, I think that's why people will just go out and automatically buy Michelins or Bridgestones, and they don't really care how much they spend. But what I've seen here is that you can actually save money by buying other brands and still not have any problems. And when I was looking around, there are some brands that didn't really inspire me with confidence. I won't name names, but they just didn't really give me the confidence I needed. But these Hankooks and Gitis have been fine. As I say, I've seen Hankook tyres on a brand new Porsche Cayenne, and these Giti 152s are used by Volkswagen on their Tiguan SUV. So if big manufacturers like that are using Hankook and Giti, you know that there can't be any problems. One thing I need to stress is that I'm by no means saying that Michelin or Bridgestones are bad tyres. I think they're excellent tyres, but they are very expensive. And because of my financial position now, caused by falling exchange rates, I've needed to look for cheaper alternatives, and I'm quite happy that there are cheaper alternatives available that are just as good. Because there's so little about Giti and Hankook on the internet, I just thought I needed to add a few words. I hope this has been useful, and if you have any comments or questions, please leave them below.